We'll be going into our second part of our LEX talks, and I'm looking for our MC, Loren. Is Loren here? There he is. All right. So Loren is the chair of the disputes practice at DLA Piper. He's the vice chair of the U.S. Part of the firm. He's on the board of the firm. He's a very, oops, I'm like taking this thing apart here. He's a very accomplished litigator, litigating mass torts and pharmaceutical cases, a whole range of complex litigation cases. And he's also one of the driving forces behind DLA Piper, focusing more and more on digital transformation, embracing AI. And so we're very lucky to have Loren run this session. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Loren Brown.
So maybe over drinks later, Danny and I will offer our differing views on how we started our AI law practice. It's like an old married couple arguing over what really happened. But anyway, I'm Loren Brown. I'm very pleased to present the next set of LEX talks today. We've got 3 terrific speakers. Originally, we were going to have 4, but Abdi, Aidid, who was going to give one of the talks, unfortunately ran into travel difficulties today. So if Megan is here somewhere, I think she has agreed to offer some learnings and insights from the hackathon, and we'll have her go into Abdi's slot. So the first presenter that we have today is Margaret Hagan. I'm sure many of you know Margaret, but I will introduce her. Margaret is the executive director of the Legal Design Lab and a lecturer at Stanford Law School and the Stanford Institute of Design. She was a fellow at the Design School from 2013 to 2014, where she launched the program for legal tech and design, experimenting in how design can make legal service more usable and useful and engaging. She teaches a series of project-based classes with interdisciplinary student groups tackling legal challenges through user-focused research and design of the new legal tech products and services. Margaret today is going to talk about AI and access to justice. Please join me in welcoming Margaret.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. How's everyone doing this afternoon? Thanks for being here. I'm going to be brief. I'm really excited to present work that I've done with many faces I've seen in the crowd, including wonderful students from across campus in autumn and winter quarter. So today I'm going to talk about access to justice. Does anyone know what access to justice means? I know we're not in the usual crowd. On Tuesday, I was in Washington, D.C., with legal aid executive directors from around the country and some faces here, where access to justice is the talk. How do we help people going through divorce, traffic ticket, debt collection, eviction, immigration problems? In that world, technology is not always thought of as the answer to help people, but we're trying to combine these worlds of technology and public interest. At the conferences that I usually go to, not conferences that are all about tech, but more about solving problems for kind of everyday people with legal crises, there's kind of 2 camps that have formed in the past year. One, I would call the techno-optimists, who are really excited about how AI is going to revolutionize how we help normal people who can't really afford a lawyer all that much to deal with these everyday housing, money, traffic ticket, healthcare, and work problems. ChatGPT, it's going to write letters for people. It's going to help them file lawsuits, answer lawsuits, prepare for their day in court, make sure that they can connect with the right legal service provider. AI is the answer, the optimistic crowd. Then, on the other side of the spectrum are the techno-skeptics, who are very, very doubtful that technology, especially LLMs, these kinds of gibberish machines that we can't explain, are going to be the ones to solve this intractable problem of people not being able to get legal help. I see both of those people's points. Probably we're in a room of techno-optimists today. I don't know, do we have any techno-skeptics in the crowd at FutureLaw? Probably we're pretty techno-optimistic. So I really advocate for somewhere in the middle that's really driven by empiricism and really driven by people's behavior. That even if there are some judges, legal aid lawyers, and other folks who really care about solving people's legal problems who are very skeptical about AI, we have to follow what people are actually going to be doing, where they're going to be going. And we can guess that people are going to start to use AI platforms to solve their legal problems. So in our AI for Legal Help class in autumn and winter quarter here at Stanford Law School and D School, we've been asking these questions and doing research with community members, with frontline advocates who work at legal aid, court help centers, staff hotlines, to figure out kind of what can we expect in the next few years about consumer behavior when it comes to using AI for legal problem solving, and how can we start planning for responsible, ethical AI in this space. So let me share some of the things that we've been doing and what we've been finding. So in autumn quarter, well actually last June with my colleague Nora, and then in autumn quarter with students, we've been interviewing adults around America in 30-minute interviews, either in the lobbies of courthouses or online, and asking them if they've already used AI to try to deal with one of those common legal problems. And then we give them a fictional problem. We give them a fake eviction notice, and we ask them if they're willing to use an AI platform like Bard or Gemini or like ChatGPT, and we watch over their shoulder as they try to use AI to deal with this fake eviction notice. What we see at the top left-hand, dark blue diagram, when we ask people before they try out AI, before they try for that fake eviction notice, if they're going to trust what the AI tells them, people are 3 out of 6. If 6 is high trust, 0 is no trust, I will not trust the AI, people generally said they were somewhere in the middle before they had tried the AI tool. What you see in the light blue turquoise at the top right is that after they try out ChatGPT or Bard Gemini, even just for a 5-minute interaction, asking basic questions of, I got this scary letter on my door, what should I do? What are my rights? Do I have any legal recourse? Was the landlord allowed to do this? And what the AI product gave to them increased their level of trust, that it gave them much more than they were expecting in terms of value. When we asked people in the purple question, how helpful was that AI tool in this fake legal problem? People were saying, a majority, 6 out of 6 helpfulness. When we asked them, would you use AI for future legal problem solving? Again, most people said 6 out of 6, yes, I would try AI to deal with legal problems. So this lets us make some intuitive guesses about what the future is going to look like. If most people, when we've been interviewing them over the past many years, we've been interviewing people, have said, I start with Google search, or I start talking with families or friends when one of these scary problems arises, we can imagine that AI will now be one of those first tools that they use when they're having a challenging or scary life problem happening to them. Here are some quotes of people as they were interacting with the AI tool for this fake eviction notice about what they found helpful or valuable. So this woman in her mid-30s, some college education, works in human resources. She was really impressed by how step-by-step and actionable the AI's information was to her. It gave her a plan, it gave her a legal assessment about the situation, and it made her feel more confident. A man in his early 20s who works in construction management, again, some college education, he felt like interacting with the AI helped him feel more confident about this daunting task of doing legal research on your own. He felt more prepared. He felt it was more human than a Google search. Or, oh, I skipped the last one. There was another woman who said, I don't trust it totally, but it helps me feel like I am ready to get started. So I know the AI might hallucinate. I know I can't rely on the case law citations, but it gives me a plan of action that I feel like helps me set on the right course. So as we've been talking to users, kind of community members, about if they would use AI, we also know that in this space, in the public interest access to justice space, it really matters to have frontline providers, meaning those who work at legal aid, law libraries, legal help hotlines, or court help centers to know what they want and what they would actually provide if they're one of the main frontline providers for people with help. And in our interviews and surveys with frontline providers, we found a kind of surprising openness to AI. At that conference on Tuesday in Washington, D.C., I was in a big ballroom, and I asked the crowd, how many of you are optimistic and how many of you are skeptical about if tech can help close the justice gap? I don't know, Lisa, I think like 75% of people raised their hands for optimistic, and then 25% said skeptic. What we've heard in interviews with frontline legal aid and law librarian providers is that they feel like, has been said already today, AI is coming, tech is coming, and we have to see this as an opportunity to see if and how it can responsibly help the folks that we're trying to serve. Or lots of ideas. There's lots of ideas flowing, especially those who are interacting day to day with folks in what they know is a very inefficient way, trying to help people who are facing removal proceedings or trying to stay in their house or facing a scary debt collection lawsuit. There's a lot of brainstorming going on about all the ways that generative AI can be helpful for these on-the-ground, right-now problems that just do not have enough human capacity to solve. And we also find that these frontline providers feel more optimistic than a lot of private practitioners in law about how AI is going to impact the industry and help solve the justice gap. That there is like a surprising willingness to do R&D, to pilot things, to try things out. But what this space doesn't have, and this is the closing note, is technologists. So we've been identifying all these specific tasks, and we've been verifying these with frontline providers. If AI could be doing these tasks, answering people's initial questions about what is this scary piece of paper and what should I do? Can we translate that into multiple languages? Can we help refer them to the best possible service that could help them? And then all the way down through the journey of helping them write letters, fill in court forms correctly, do some amount of legal research, stay committed throughout a long legal process, prepare for negotiations, go through a possible negotiation, present their case to an adjudicator or judge, and then make sure they actually understood what just happened. We have these, what Megan Ma was talking about. We've been identifying these specific legal tasks that happen in a justice journey. But what we don't have is, can anyone guess? We don't have the technologists. These legal aid groups, these court groups, we just do not have a robust community of technologists in this space. We know it's a tough market, there's not a lot of profit to be made, but that's gonna be my final call to all of you. If you're interested, whether it's in a pro bono capacity, research and academic, or otherwise, we're building a great R&D community with all of these local on-the-ground partners, with community members, to develop responsible AI in this space. If you're interested, there's the QR code. Come sign up. Tell us how you think you can help us. We're really interested in getting more folks who are being very thoughtful about the research in this space, actually building and maintaining tech in this space. So yeah, be in touch if you're interested. Thanks, everyone.
So our next talk is going to be given by Preston Carlson. Preston, are you in here somewhere? So Preston is the computable contracts developer at CodeX. His work primarily falls under the CodeX Insurance Initiative, where he is helping to develop a digital platform for the analysis of logic program insurance contracts. As part of this effort, he is conducting research into logic program containment testing and the evaluation of logic programs on incomplete data sets. And Preston is going to talk about the CodeX Insurance Analyst. So please welcome Preston.
Thank you, Loren, for that introduction. Am I on? There we go. Thank you, Loren, for that introduction. Yeah. All right. Oh, goodness. Where is the? Yeah. Is it this here?
That's the clicker. Yes.
Excellent, okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Yeah, so in the insurance initiative, our research and development focuses on the representation of insurance contracts as logic programs. Today, I'll be presenting a new system we've developed at the insurance initiative, the CodeX Insurance Analyst. There we go. Last year, we presented a demo system by the same name that was built to highlight aspects of the technology that we find particularly interesting and exciting, especially how these computable contracts enable through transparency, transparency through consumer-driven exploration of coverage and policy comparison and analysis via logic program containment testing. Since then, we've been developing a system based on the same underlying technology, but with a different primary focus. Instead of focusing on showcasing the technology directly, our new system is first and foremost intended to deliver value to insurance consumers. This is the system that's been on display in the lobby throughout today. We've targeted the Stanford community as our initial user base and have found that members of the community, and students in particular, want to understand, one, what is covered by their health insurance, and two, what leeway they have in choosing their health insurance. Students have these needs because at Stanford, students are automatically enrolled in a university-provided plan called Cardinal Care at the beginning of each academic year. If a student wants to waive Cardinal Care, they must explicitly request to do so and provide proof of existing coverage, which must meet certain minimum requirements. If they don't have sufficient coverage, they are obliged to stay enrolled in Cardinal Care, which costs thousands of dollars in addition to any insurance premiums from their existing insufficient policy. Yeah. Many students, faced with an expensive, semi-mandated policy, become curious about what coverage Cardinal Care actually provides. And with the health insurance provider misadjudicating claims, students don't have confidence that the insurance provider can actually answer their questions. Students would like to be able to independently verify what their policy covers so that they can confidently dispute misadjudicated claims and understand what healthcare services they can have provided. So one of the initial goals of the system has been to provide clear answers to users' coverage questions regarding Cardinal Care. To do so, we have encoded large swaths of the Cardinal Care policy as a logic program, and have built our first version of the CodeX Insurance Analyst to enable consumers to query that encoding to determine whether specific situations will be covered by the policy. Users can search for healthcare services to investigate whether they're covered by Cardinal Care. And each service has its own form in which users can enter any information relevant to determining whether an instance of that service will be covered. Note that users aren't filing claims here. They are describing real or hypothetical situations and getting answers as to whether those situations are covered by their insurance policies. Once enough information has been provided, the system computes whether the specific situation is covered, and coverage is recomputed dynamically as the user changes the provided information. I'd like to draw attention to the simplicity of this interface in UX. That simplicity has been hard-won and has been driven by two key principles for how we approach UX for the system. First, we only ask for information that we expect the consumer to have, and second, we don't ask any questions we could answer ourselves. Like these principles seem fairly obvious, but delivering on them in the domain of health insurance can require substantial work. In large part, this is because health insurance policies make extensive reference to guidelines and data sources that are completely external to the policy wording. For example, in Cardinal Care, immunization coverage depends on CDC vaccination guidelines, and coverage of contraceptive services depends on the database of FDA-approved treatments and prescription drugs. All of this must be included in the logic program encoding in order to provide useful, conclusive answers to lay consumers' questions. And before having consumers interface with our system, we've had to distill down these medical guidelines into straightforward questions and coverage indications so that we aren't requiring lay insurees to have domain expertise in order to effectively ask coverage questions and understand the answers we provide. Though I've primarily discussed coverage thus far, it's important to note that the most common question that students have about Cardinal Care isn't about its coverage. It's a question every student asks, regardless of their interest in insurance. Can I waive Cardinal Care? To address this question, our system also provides an interface to help students determine whether their waiver will be approved or denied. As a baseline, we ask them a simple set of questions about their insurance policy, which can commonly be answered via a straightforward search through the policy wording. Once students provide enough information, we determine whether they can expect their waiver to be approved. Students have expressed a great desire for this information. Cardinal care is expensive, and the majority of undergraduates who can waive cardinal care do so. And just like with insurance claims, these waivers have been pretty consistently misadjudicated. Many have been approved that shouldn't have been, and likewise for declined. There are also additional requirements for international students that need to be taken into account. These are quite strict requirements and prevent most international students from waiving cardinal care. They've been some of the most vocal users, actually, of, but some of the most vocal members of our user base. Yeah. In addition to this form where people can we go back? Yeah, in addition to this form, we've encoded the cardinal care requirements as a logic program insurance contract, essentially treating the requirements as a sort of minimum policy that we can compare others against. As we integrate policies beyond cardinal care into the system in the near future, this encoding will enable many users to automatically determine compliance with the waiver requirements. This is made possible using techniques for logic program containment testing, which allow us to compare the coverage provided by logic program insurance contracts. In developing our system, we've initially focused on cardinal care to meet the immediate needs of the community, but our development efforts are by no means limited to cardinal care or health insurance. We are already encoding other policies that are common in the community, such as auto insurance and employer-provided Kaiser Permanente and Sutter health plans. Integrating these policies into the system is crucial, as our next step in meeting the needs of the Stanford community is providing a general insurance dashboard in which users can compare policies and manage and understand insurance portfolios, making a more consumer-facing version of the prior demonstrations that we've made in days and years past. Yeah. All right, thank you very much for your attention, and to everyone who interacted with and provided feedback on the system today. We're looking forward to extending and deploying it in the coming months. Thank you.
Okay, Floris Bex is going to be our next presenter. There you are, Floris. So Floris is a computer scientist at Utrecht University in the Netherlands. He studies how people reason, how this reasoning can be captured in formal models, and how it can be supported and improved using AI. He's also active as a professor at Tilburg Institute for Law, Technology, and Society of Tilburg University. And relevant for today's purposes, Floris is the scientific director of the National Police Lab AI, a cooperative initiative with the Dutch National Police and several universities. The lab aims to develop state-of-the-art AI techniques to improve the safety of the Netherlands in a socially, legally, and ethically responsible way. And Floris is going to talk about the National Police Lab AI in the Netherlands. Come on up, Floris.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. Yes, so I would like to talk to you about how we develop and evaluate responsible AI for law enforcement at the National Police Lab in the Netherlands. Where's the clicker? Is this one the? Yeah. There we go. Right. So in order to do that, to develop this kind of new state-of-the-art AI for law enforcement, for police, we started the National Police Lab in 2019. Most of the people, when you say law enforcement and AI at the time, people thought of predictive policing, kind of area-based predictive policing, PredPol, like LAPD and NYPD used, also in the Netherlands they were using these kinds of things. But we wanted to, to do something else, to do something more. AI can do so much more than just kind of try and predict in the future where crimes will be. And we started the National Police Lab AI, collaboration between the Netherlands National Police and several universities in the Netherlands. And we've worked on many different AI kind of techniques and systems since then. For example, AI for searching through huge data sets of evidence, AI for semi-autonomous drones, AI for converting speech to text, AI for supporting police officers with a wide range of administrative tasks, and also AI for engaging with citizens, which is what I would like to talk to you about today. And interestingly, one of the core kind of ideas of the AI lab, the police lab, is that the researchers work also at the police or for the police. And well, them being embedded at the police gives them access to, of course, police data, which is interesting. But more importantly, I think it gives them access to and it brings them in contact with real police problems and real police people, which is important if you're developing AI to help these people and to solve these problems. So in 2019, we started with about 9 PhDs and a number of senior researchers, mainly technical PhDs, because we first wanted to, well, develop this AI for the police. If there's no AI, what can you do about it? But in 2024, AI is so much more than just the kind of the systems and the algorithms. There's so much going on about AI, about the ethics of AI, particularly in a subject like the police, law enforcement. And we have now about 20 researchers, more than 20 researchers, and about a third are from other non-technical backgrounds, so information systems, law, public management, media studies. And together what we want to do is not just build AI for the police, for law enforcement, but also evaluate them from different disciplinary perspectives. So for example, how is AI used at the police and by the police in their organization? And does the use of AI at the police take into account public values such as citizen trust? Which legal safeguards do we need when AI is being used by the police? So the one project I'd like to, this is one example of a project we're doing. I only have 10 minutes today, so I'd like to talk about this project. And I think because it's exemplary for the way we do research with different disciplines and on different police problems. This project is about an AI system for citizen reporting of online trade fraud. So, for example, victims, if you think you're a victim of, for example, false web shop or a malicious trader on eBay or anywhere else, you can go online and fill in a form, and then the police will kind of deal with that in different ways. The police gets about 60,000, more than 60,000 of these kinds of reports every year, particularly since the COVID pandemic, when everybody was stuck at home and just started ordering everything online. There's much more reports than they ever had before. And not all of these are fraud. So a significant amount of these are not actually fraud. People send in reports saying, well, I got the wrong product, or I didn't trust the seller, so in the end I didn't pay, but I still wanted to let you guys know. And this is not criminal fraud because, well, if you haven't been frauded out of money. And previously, all these kind of 60,000 or more had to be checked by police caseworkers to see whether they were possibly fraud, yes or no. So what we did is we developed a system to automatically determine whether something is possibly fraud or not, and then recommend to the citizen, well, if it is very probably fraud, it recommends you file an official complaint. Otherwise, it recommends you don't file an official complaint. You can still do that if you want to. You can ignore the system, but it's a recommender system. Right, and at the core of this, we've been talking about neurosymbolic AI before, and at the core of this system is a symbolic system, a symbolic legal argument system, right? So a legal argumentation model where you have the rules of the Dutch criminal code and some policy rules of the police. So for example, what counts as being deception in this case. That's kind of not in the criminal code, but that's a policy rule of the police. And this is, of course, a very simplified representation. The actual system contains more than 100 such potential arguments. And I think during the one of the panels also, it was said, well, these kind of logic-based symbolic approaches, models, they are much more interpretable that you can directly see which of the rules of the criminal code it's based on. But obviously, we also have free text. We have people filling in forms about some of the structure. There's some structure in these forms, but a lot of it is free text as well. What happened to you? Why do you think you're a victim of trade fraud? And we need some kind of data-driven NLP to interpret extract the observations from this complaint form. So here, for example, we see one observation is that, well, the complainant probably paid. I paid him in good faith. The seller possibly used, the supposed seller possibly used a false location. He said he lived far away, and I saw on Facebook he lives nearby. And the product was not delivered. I still not received anything. So we're experimenting with LLMs to kind of do this more. These kind of publications I mentioned here are already a bit older. At some point, we stopped doing that, but we're now experimenting with LLMs to do this. This works pretty well if you do that. Right, and then combining data-driven AI and more knowledge-based AI, you can kind of start inferring some conclusions. So here, for example, you see some of the observations are met, and we can already conclude that some form of deception was used, a false location, but we can't yet conclude the conclusion whether this was presumably fraud or not, because we don't have all the information yet. And this is what we see very often, because citizens simply don't know what is relevant for criminal fraud. Your average citizen doesn't know the difference between, oh, I got delivered a wrong product, or I just didn't like the seller and he was being mean to me, or I want my money back, or this is really criminal fraud. Someone is actively trying to deceive you. And to find this missing information, the system can then start asking questions, right? And it's important that the system asks the relevant questions. So which observations that were missing can still change the conclusion. If you look at this one, for example, you can see that you can ask, well, did the seller use a false website? But that doesn't help you a lot, because we already have a form of deception, false location. And in order to kind of prove criminal fraud, criminal intent, we only need to show that there's been one form of deception. So it doesn't make any sense asking, oh, did they also use a false website? And of course, here we can see with the naked eye what the best thing to ask is. Did you wait? But as I said, in the real system, it's about more than 100 potential arguments. So we developed a search algorithm to kind of go through this, because the basic algorithms that we had took a number of minutes to come up with these relevant questions. And of course, we don't want an online system for the citizen to wait a number of minutes. And then once you have this, the system can give an explanation in normal text. So in this case, it says, well, we recommend you don't file a report because you didn't wait for at least 5 days, and that's recommended before we can be really sure that it's fraud. And then we wanted to kind of evaluate this system, kind of citizen trust. Do citizens trust these systems with and without an explanation? Right? And we did a controlled experiment with about 1,700 participants, together with colleagues from public management studies. And the system said, well, your case is probably not fraud. And then the question is, do they trust the system? Do they exhibit trusting behavior? If they trust the system, well, they don't. If the system says, we recommend you don't file a report, the people don't file a report. If they don't trust the system, they still file a report. Well, we had one group, a control group. The computer basically says no. They said, well, thanks for your input. This is probably not fraud. That's it. Don't file a report, please. And 40 to 60% still did not file a report, so they listened to computer says no. But if you see with an explanation, if we gave an explanation like the one I just shown you, then 65 to 80% did not file a report. So kind of these explanations, these kind of meaningful explanations, really matter whether people trust the system. And I think this is only a small project, but I think this is exemplary for how we want to do responsible AI at the Police Lab AI. So we combine this neurosymbolic knowledge and data-driven AI. We have AI that abides by the rules. It doesn't come up with its own policy rules. A number of chatbots have been in the news lately that have come up with new policy rules or new legal rules. That's not what this does. But on the other hand, we do want AI that's able to communicate naturally and which you're able to kind of, normal citizens are able to interface with very naturally. So that's a combination of knowledge and data-driven AI. We want to build and evaluate for practice and in practice as well. So systems for real police problems, and also tested on real citizens and real police people. And we want to have different research methods and disciplines. So what you see is very often the computer scientists, they go for efficiency, accuracy, right? Because that's how they've been trained to work. Algorithms should be efficient, accurate, that's it. But we need, I think, and especially if you're looking at the police, something as contentious and as kind of risky as AI at the police, we need more perspectives on this. We also need to take into account not just efficiency, but also kind of the rule of law, citizen trust, and other public values. Thank you.
Hello again, long time no see. So I'm here to just share a quick update. So just shy about a year ago, right after FutureLaw 2023, we had an industry fellow, if you know him, Pierre. He's a seasoned hacker, and he said to us, oh, there are absolutely no hackathons in the space of generative AI and law. And so he approached Roland and I and suggested it as an idea. And as Roland, always as our fearless leader and welcoming to all new ideas, said, yes, we can do it. And we decided to do it in 2 weeks. And we held our first LLM X Law hackathon. We brought in about 250 people from around the world. We had folks fly in from Germany. And we had a number of great sponsors. TR jumped right into it. AXA jumped right into it. And we had about 40 projects come out of it. And then we held our second, we also had our second one in September. We brought in then 280, close to 300 people with about 38 projects. And then this past Sunday, we held our third LLM X Law hackathon. And this time, we not only had a record of 600 registrations, we had 400 people actually show up in person with nearly 70 projects. And I just want to share that the error is palpable in bringing together not only technologists, but lawyers to share this space. And I think that CodeX has been a place where we wanted to welcome that. And so I just want to say that we're continuing the hackathons, even though they are, unlike Pierre said, a low lift. They are actually quite tiring. But our next one is actually going to be in partnership with Cambridge University. We'll be hosting it at King's College in the home of Alan Turing. And so hopefully we can bring in more Cambridge students, we can bring in Stanford students, as well as, again, technologists and lawyers from around the world flying in to build together. So yeah, just wanted to share a little bit about this. And if you wanted to know more about what we've done at the hackathon, what are the outcomes of it, some of the winners and some of the great projects that we've seen, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. But yeah, just want to share a very special event that we've now made as part of our CodeX family. Thank you.